Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, we got some news, not directly from Turbo, but some global news that I will be mentioning in this video, and we will be doing a general video about this in another video. But look, we have to talk about it, right? Because this is relevant for the whole markets, and obviously it is just bigger than the markets. We can see that 335 million have been liquidated from the market, from the crypto market in the past 60 minutes after Israel launches strikes on Iran. Now, that is the main thing, right? You can see this was like 4 hours ago as of recording. But ladies and gentlemen, um, you know, this type of stuff, this is that 1% news that I talk about where I say, 99% of news, I do not care. Okay. Tariff this, tariff that, whatever. I just knew it's a game of chess. But this is a little different because when you kind of nuke somebody, not necessarily nuke, but when you strike missiles and you kill a lot of government officials, there's no going back, right? This is not like a game of chess at that point. Maybe in an even bigger picture for these elites, it is, but at this point, it gets kind of serious. And this is the 1% news that that does really affect the markets. And obviously it's beyond the markets, it's people's lives at stake and everything. And this is something that could potentially lead to even World War III, which obviously is not ideal for anybody in terms of lives, and of course, obviously not in terms of crypto, and of course, obviously not in terms of Turbo, right? I just had to say that, like, out there. But yeah, like this is pretty big. So we didn't get any news from Turbo themselves, but we did get some very, very big global news, which obviously caused the markets to absolutely tank. I mean, we can see Bitcoin just shot down thousands of dollars after this news has come out. Now, we did know Bitcoin was, selling off, and it did plan on selling off until roughly 104,000. That's because that's where there was a relevant gap. But still, right? Still, this doesn't take away the fact that there are very big global events happening that do impact the markets extremely heavily. And we can see it. Bitcoin took a dip. So obviously something like Turbo is going to take a very, very big dip. We did see kind of, weak price action over the last few days, but, still, regardless, right? We obviously want a stronger price action. We did technically create a higher high, right? We had this high over here. We created a higher high. So technically there was a potential change of structure as long as we closed, somewhere where over here, right, to create a higher low. But this war, is happening, right? I do believe, from what I know, Iran is going to be retaliating and attacking Israel back. Now, I'm not here to say who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. I'm just here to report, what's happening, right? If something's going to be affecting the markets, if something's going to be affecting Turbo, if something's going to be affecting crypto, Bitcoin, I got to talk about it. So, yeah, I mean, this is when there's more uncertainty in the markets. Obviously, there's going to be more uncertainty surrounding Turbo because, people are going to panic. Investors are going to, start to cash out. Now, when it comes to actual structure technical analysis, we're still on track. We're still on track to being fine. But obviously, you got to put like an asterisk beside it because there's the possibility of a war, a World War III. And at this point, at that point, something like technical analysis on meme coins doesn't really hold the most emphasis. It still does, of course, but I mean, not that much, because if the world is going to go to crap, then, at that point, it doesn't really, really matter. But look, we're not going to cause too much fear, but we do have to say what is out there currently, right? When we go on to the indicators and we go to the MA cross with our custom settings, ladies and gentlemen, we can see when we go to something like the daily, right? We are still under the green line. When we're under the green line, that means we are still bearish. We can see when we went over the green line, that is when we were bullish technically until we dropped in May. Now, we did find out the clues already earlier, right? We did, right? We found them practically at the 12th of May, which is why I don't really like using indicators too often, but this is just something so people that don't understand what I'm saying, right, in terms of certain candles and certain references and certain terminology, right? You guys just see the lines, you follow the lines. It's much easier this way. Now, I will say I am still obviously optimistic on Turbo long term. This war is definitely a wrench into everything, right? Because we don't know how badly it's going to escalate, which is why we have to watch out. We can even see, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to cover this more in a different video. Something like gold shot up like crazy, right? Gold shot up like crazy. The markets have dumped kind of like crazy. I don't think this is going to necessarily be an April type of move where it's going to just crash, because I do believe, the market makers, the people that are behind, Wall Street, the ones that control all of this, they don't want it to escalate that much. People would rather always see their money get pumped up. But look, in terms of Turbo, right, we are still at the big support, which is what we don't want to drop. We don't want to drop this big support. Now, before I get into talking about the support, I do want to say, ladies and gentlemen, right, I was supposed to yesterday create another Turbo video in the afternoon, but I was feeling unwell. So that's why there's only even 2 videos that day. And that's why there was no stream, because I was absolutely out of it, some kind of bug. But we are back in action. Now, before we continue with the rest of the technical analysis, ladies and gentlemen, we can see that, we are at 165 rank, 0.0035 price, 247 million market cap, 62 million in volume. If we go look, right, why is Turbo price dropping? Some people are saying, I've never seen this before. With whale could coordinated accumulation near 0.0035 support spark a reversal? Absolutely, right? I just kind of skipped the conclusion because we don't need all the stuff that we're looking at, but absolutely, right? I do believe we will be holding the support. In terms of holders, we actually have dropped off a little bit. As currently, we are the same as Thursday, but on Wednesday we did have a little bit more. But yeah, this is the next big thing, is holding this big support. Now, here's the thing, right? I do believe we will hold this support. Yes, I know there's that war asterisk, but this is a time where millionaires are made. This is a time where people that are okay with, risk, they're okay with all the fear surrounding the markets. This is where people make the most. This is where they see opportunity. In terms of pure technical analysis standpoint, right now, practically buying is going to be some of the most optimal buys. Now, obviously, I'm not a financial advisor, but just from a technical analysis standpoint, I mean, look at where we're at. We're at a very huge support and resistance, right? The biggest support and resistance Turbo has, and debatably the biggest support Turbo will ever have. So yeah, we do need to rely on this holding. We could take that calculated gamble of, dollar cost averaging, even with this war happening. So, you have to make that choice yourself. I know what I'm going to be doing. I know what I've already done and what I'm going to continue to do. But, everyone has their own plan. Everyone has their own risk tolerance. I still believe mainly in July to September, we will be having the very big pumps. Now, unfortunately, right, we covered in the last video, we are not really following the global liquidity to a T anymore, right? We were really accurate with it, and now we kind of have fallen off, which is a little annoying. The key points of the top and the bottom were still in check, but all the micro moves of where we could potentially be peaking have not been that valid, right? They really haven't, which is unfortunate because this was almost like a cheat code. I still do rely on technical analysis. I still rely on certain fundamentals that I'm ultimately looking at, right, to determine whether or not we will be reversing, whether or not, it's a good time to buy. And yeah, look, I'm still super high on Turbo. I still believe we will be reaching insane highs. I do believe it is one of the best meme coins to take a risk on ultimately. And I do know this coin will be doing very, very well in the future. Just as long as this world does not blow up, and as long as we just don't go into World War III, this token should do fine. But that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy. Stay safe out there. You know, it sucks that the world operates this way, but there's nothing you and I can really, really do. And yeah, love you guys so much. We love Turbo, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.